For anybody watching, this is the GoGuide podcast, calling it the Guides Cast. That's kind of the name that we're running with right now. We'll see how that works. We're on with Mike Curtis from Bucking Trout Outfitters. He's been actually one of the first partners that we ever had with GoGuide. Big part of actually helping us grow the system, make it better, and turn it into something that's like really useful for people. So he's been a huge help for us, incredibly kind. We got to go out there and fish with him too. Amazing guide, knows a ton about all the fisheries that he's around. So I'm excited to hear a little bit more about that. And then, Mike, thanks for joining the podcast. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man. Thanks for the kind words. I don't think I've heard so many kind words put to me all at once, but
you've been great. You've been great to us. It's been
great to be working. No, it's been fun working with you guys, and you know, I've been in the industry for 16 years now, and I'm just glad I can lend a hand on, you know, little stuffs and tweaks that every guide should make it more enjoyable for every guide using the GoGuide system. I mean, the transition was seamless, and you guys, it's great to be like, hey, I have this idea, or can we tweak it this way to make it a little bit easier? And you guys are all ears and willing to listen and be like, you know what, that is a good idea, or I don't know if we can do that, but how about this? And it's been a lot of fun working with you guys on it.
That's great to hear. Yeah, I mean, we like to say that the system's been built by our guides and outfitters, so you've been a huge part of that, which has been great. But I'd like to hear a little bit more about you. So I guess let's start from the beginning. When did you start fly fishing, and how did that matriculate into where you are today? Like, what's the timeline here?
Wow, oh, God, you're talking a lot of years. So I started fly fishing when I was 13. I was always raised with my dad, spin fishing. You know, I call it kind of that evolution of fishing where when your kids are first starting out in fishing, it's kind of throw the bait, throw that bobber, and then you kind of get bored with that and go into the lures and the retrieves and doing everything yourself. And from that, you evolve into the fly fishing world, and wanting to dabble in that and, you know, explore the fly fishing stuff. And then that branches off into fly tying, streamers. But to make a long story short, I started out with the evolution of it, and my dad got me into fishing. 13, I asked for my first fly rod for my birthday, and it was really weird. It was an Orvis Green Mountain fly package that we bought at the local grocery store.
Wow.
And started dabbling with that, and the biggest kick now being a guide for so long was not realizing how important guides can be to your progress and help you, whether you're first starting out or, you know, trying to develop a double haul or more advanced techniques could be. And I never asked for a guide trip from my parents growing up to help me hone my skills, and I struggled for a lot of years until my early 20s with it. And then that's when I first kind of got into the industry. I started to work for Orvis, and it really kind of advanced me into those next levels. And then I was always a fish head, always wanting to go fish. And how I got into guiding, I kind of fell into it. I was out hunting with a buddy, and he was buddies of owner of a fly shop in South Lake Tahoe, and I just kind of made the joke at the end of the day, like, hey, you ever need a guide, you know, I'm always fishing and all that, not really knowing what guiding was about. Just thinking, yeah, no, hey, I get paid to go fish. Why not? He turned around and said, I'm always looking for guides. Send me your resume. And I went home to my girlfriend at the time and was like, I got this job offer for being a fly fishing guide. And she looked at me and she goes, you're fishing all the time. You might as well effing get paid for it. So you better take this job.
There you go.
And 16 years later, I'm still guiding. Sadly, she's no longer around, but, that's a different story. And I'm still loving guiding as much as the first day I started guiding. And it's one of those things, I still learn something on the water every single day I'm on the water. And I figure the day I stop learning is the day I'll stop guiding, and that's probably the day I'll be buried in the ground.
Yeah. There's always something to learn, that's for sure. That is for sure. How have you seen yourself kind of grow as a guide since the beginning and now? Like, what have you felt is mistakes that you made early in your guiding career and things that you've kind of honed over time that make you such a good guide now?
Ooh, a lot of mistakes as a young guide. It's, there's the way I see guides throughout the country, there's kind of two different guides. There's the guides that just kind of say, here's the bare minimum, or if you know how to cast, great. Cast here, there's a fish. Cast there, there's a fish. And there's the guides that, they want to teach. And I think those are the guides that really do well in this industry and want to be able to advance people. I think starting out for me as a young guide, I was kind of that, hey, cast here, like, let's hit that big fish, I remember one of my guide trips, my first year, we were on a small tailwater up here, and there's this big rainbow, probably 26 inches, 25, 26, and I got that fish to eat my client's dry dropper 7 times. It was 3 times on the dry and 4 times on the nymph. And my client never saw any of the takes, never listened to me when I said set. And being a young first year guy, like, I was super frustrated because I wanted, it's that ego thing. Like, I wanted my client to land a monster fish. And going through that process, it definitely brought me down a tone or two. And now it's one of those things like, hey, I did my job as a guide. I got that fish to eat 6-7 times, and you know what? They missed it. But I just laugh at it now, going, that's a part of being a guide.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot that guides learn throughout the career, especially 16 years. Like, that's a long time. A lot of things, a lot of lessons learned, a lot of things that now that are great to impart that knowledge. I would love to hear a little bit about how you started Bucking Trout Outfitters. I know the story a little bit, but I'd love to hear more about kind of what was the game plan, what were the steps that you took to make it happen, and what were some of, like, the challenges that you faced starting an outfitter?
So it was, long version or short version. Basically, long version was, in 2015, I got diagnosed with cancer. Stepped away for guiding for that summer while I was doing chemo treatments every month, and basically for chemo treatments I had to spend a week in the hospital doing the chemo because it was so toxic. Which in reality and looking back at it, it was kind of a godsend because 2015 was our worst drought year ever. And for the state of Nevada, like for the Truckee River, which I guide on the Nevada side, they were saying they estimated we lost up to 80% of our trout population that summer.
Wow.
So going through all that, I was at home in 2016 and I got a call saying that one of the local shops was looking for a head guide and wanted to really start up their guide program again. So I went in, talked to the owner, got hired, talked to the owner of the old fly shop that I was working for, and he was nothing but being support, like, this is a great move for you. You know, you should take it. Don't give this up. So that's what I did, and I worked for him for a year. And I had other guides calling me, wanting to come work, and the owner just wasn't really listening to me on where I wanted to go, commission rates, you know, stuff like that. And he wanted to go 180 degrees. And when he said that, I kind of lost my filter. So we had a little bit of an outing, and then a month later, he basically let me know that he wasn't going to re-sign me up, and I was, you know, basically let go. So at that moment, Bucking Trout Outfitters was born. It was kind of just, it wasn't, what am I going to do now? It's, okay, I'll start my own company. Let's go. And that was back in 2017, 2018. And just hit the ground running, you know, being in the guide industry at that time for 12 years. I'd made a lot of contacts, knew a lot of guys. And that's one thing I'd like to say for the industry is there's going to be beefs with people. There's going to be drama and stuff like that. But we're all a community. And in the end, we all need, you know, should be working together. And for young guides, you know, make those contacts, because you never know what's going to happen one day, and you might need somebody that, you know, you might have burned a bridge or whatever. And I was fortunate enough, a couple of guys were like, great, we'll use you as an independent contractor, come on in. And Bucking Trout Outfitters was born. I got my website kind of up and done by myself, quick shot, you know, learning on the fly stuff and how to do that, and been doing that ever since. And this year I've had a falling out and with one of the guys that I was an independent contractor for, and you know, now it's let's take it to the next level. And you know, with GoGuide being not having a shop, being my only one that has to answer the phones, emails, all that stuff, and take people out on the water. This is why GoGuide's such a great fit for guides that are independent or shops, because people can just go onto your website, click it, book you, and away you go without, you know, having to wait 5 or 6 hours to return phone calls. Because let's face it, clients, when they want to go fish anywhere in the country, they're going to pull up a Google list of all the guides, and they're just going to go down that line, you know, or go down those websites and figure out who to call. And then if they don't answer, it's on to the next one. Well, with GoGuide, all you got to do is click online book now, let's go, you know, and it's not even a phone call. and you can be out on the water guiding and still booking trips.
Well, I
And
appreciate that.
it's
That's
such a great fit. No, it's truth. It's where it should be. It's where everybody's heading. It's great for people and guides like myself that just, if we could clone ourselves, we would, but we can't. So this is the next best thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I appreciate those kind words. I mean, that's exactly why we built the system, is trying to keep it personal, because the fly fishing industry is personal. I mean, the fly fishing industry is person to person.
Yeah.
You're spending a whole day out on the water with somebody. You want to keep that personal touch to everything, but also simplifying things. There's a place to meet in the middle where you can make things really, really personal by making people understand who they're booking with, even if they're booking online, but also making it super simple. So I appreciate you saying that. I want to hear a little bit more about all the different trips you offer as Bucking Trout Outfitters. I'd love to hear about the experiences, what it's like to go out on a day with you.
So I'm a year-round guide. So, there's a couple of main bodies of water that I will guide, in the summertime, and then transfer over to the wintertime fishing in that body of water. Since we're going into summer right now, the main body of water that I will guide is the Truckee River on the Nevada side and the California side. The Truckee River is my baby. I grew up fishing it since I could walk. It's definitely a tale of two different rivers depending on which state you're in. The California side, which runs a little bit more like a tailwater, smaller flies, pickier fish. Used to be more numbers of fish up on the California side. Recently, probably since 2010, I would disagree with that. I'd say Nevada's got more fish, at least catchable. So the California side is walk wade only. There's also the tailwater up there, which has become pretty famous, which is the Little Truckee River, and that's an unbelievable fishery. Great dry fly fishing. And then you get into the Nevada side, which it's hard to describe because technically the Truckee River is a tailwater, even though it acts like a freestone. You get lower in Nevada, you get more water pumped into the system. You get an off-color kind of greenness to it. A little bit bigger fish on average, but the whole thing is definitely technical. I feel very fortunate to grow up guiding in this technical water. I mean, the two nicknames are the Big Tuffy and the Big Tricky, and the reason for that, one is I was able to hone my guide skills, but also the teaching point of the guide skills to pass that along to clients to make them a better fisherman overall. Not only on the Truckee River, but a lot of the techniques and stuff that we hone and teach on the Truckee River will make you catch more fish anywhere in the country on any river system. With that, I also do float trips on the Truckee River on the Nevada side. I've got 4 different floats depending on what's fishing well, and half day or full day trips. One of them's, if a lot of people say no, but it's really good fishing, is straight through downtown Reno. Reno is one of the few places in the country you could literally walk out of a hotel casino, walk 50 feet down to the river, and start catching great, 20 plus inch fish. So that's one of the floats. The other ones, it's east of town and more of your desert, I call it, the desert rose scene, but your desert scenery, you're going to see wild horses, sagebrush, deer, but also great pocket water fishing, great run fishing. The Truckee offers excellent streamer fishing, Euro nymphing, indicator fishing, dry dropper, even though we use the dry more as an indicator than a dropper. Dry fly fishing on the Truckee, we get about 2 months a year. One's in October and the other one's in February. Is our dry fly season, and that's with the blue wings olives, and that's about it. Although the blue wing olives in February, not many people have, and it's also pretty cool if we get a long storm system where the second and third day it can be snowing, but we don't get any wind, so you can go out and chuck dry big size 14 blue wing olives in the falling down snow to rising fish. It's pretty awesome. The second fishery that I guide, and it's become world famous, is Pyramid Lake. Pyramid Lake cutthroat trout are the largest in the world, period. Some of the largest trout overall in the world, period. Season for Pyramid opens up October 1st and it closes at the end of June. Although for us it's kind of mid-June depending on water temps on the surface, and when they get too hot, I'm not going to guide it anymore. Out of October and the start, we're out of the tubes, generally fishing anywhere from 25 feet to 50 feet of water. I have come up with a new term just to make myself feel better, and we're calling it still water tight line fishing. And if you're scratching in your head at that right now, I can't blame you. Basically, it's basically we're getting 40 to 50 feet of, I've gone to braided line and basically dropping that down to the bottom and Euro nymphing, keeping tight to it, giving a little bit of movement with a jig head and catching fish, feeling the grab, feeling everything with that. It's going back to seeing the industry. It's kind of strange that you see the convergence of conventional tackle coming into the fly fishing world, and they're more getting diluted by what you're using and how you're doing it. And a lot of guys out here, even streamer fishing on the river like I do it, we're running a 16th ounce bass jig head with a fly tied to it, or an 1/8 ounce jig head, and casting that and retrieving that for our streamer fishing on the river. So Pyramid, it's one of those kind of weird fisheries where it's middle of the winter. It's kind of like steelheading, where you could be making 500 casts or 1,000 casts, or you can go, if you don't know the lake and don't really have your finger on the pulse of the lake, you could go 3-4 days straight without getting a grab. Especially those cold water temps, like in January. This year it was a little bit later, mid-February, where water temps were down at 38 degrees, and unless you knew where a few fish were pushing through, it was going to be very tough on you to get a grab or get some fish. But the nice thing about it is what we call an average fish, or a shaker, is a trophy fish anywhere else you go, period. It's on the river, we'd be hooping and hollering and be like, that's the fish of the day. And out Pyramid, you're like, man, all right, on to the next. Let's go. And honestly, I have to keep myself in check with that one a lot. Because so for those of you who don't know, average size fish out at Pyramid Lake is 22 to 24 inches. Trophy, 99% of the country. For us, that's an average fish. So we get spoiled greatly out there catching these monsters. Like, where anywhere else, if I was on the Truckee, I'd be hooping and hollering. Out there, it's like, all right, got this one, let's get another one. And I did have to have a client remind me my second year guiding out there that I was like, oh, look at this cute little guy, 24-inch fish, and kind of shoot it away. And they're like, can we take a photo? Because that was the biggest fish I've ever caught in my life. And it's like, oh, guide fail right there. Yeah. And that memory has stuck with me. And every fish, especially the first couple ones, I'm always, you guys want to get a photo? Was this your biggest fish? If it is, let's get a photo, man. Let's commemorate this, and hopefully we'll get some more, and hopefully we'll get one that's over 30 inches and over 10, 15 pounds. It definitely, anytime your fly hits the water out there, you got a shot at catching a trout that's over 15 pounds, which is completely amazing.
Yeah, those fish are special. Those fish are pretty cool. I'm glad we got to get out there with you. You got us on the.
Yeah, I'm
that I can count.
So happy you guys got to come out. It slowed down because we had that cold snap right after you guys were there, and it got tough for a while during the peak season, which is March. And honestly, the last couple of years, March has really sucked because it seems like we've gotten some cold snaps to come in that mid to late February time, and it pushes those fish out. And it seems like they still do their pre-spawn stuff. They just do it where we can't touch them and get to them from the shore. But, if you're looking to come out and fishing it, January to early February, mid-February can be really, really good. But this year, we're still hitting fish in late May from the shore that are cruising and having really good numbers in late May. So don't count out May, April, May, the kind of the slower off-season stuff. If you're looking for that trophy fish, generally I'd say November, early December is going to be your shot. Typically what I tell clients is we might only get 5 fish in a day, but I can almost guarantee one of those fish is going to be over 10 pounds. Easy. So it just kind of depends on what the client's looking for. And, that's one thing I'd say to a lot of new guides that are out there is when you talk to your clients, ask them what they want out of the day, because it is their day. And I've gotten a lot of people be like, man, I really don't care about catching fish. I need to work on this double haul, or I need to work on my spay cast, or I want to learn streamer fishing or this Euro game. I don't care if we catch fish. And when you sit down and talk to them beforehand, you have an expectation of what the day is going to be like, but also you can put an expectation into their head on what the day is going to be like, and you can squash a lot of expectations that a lot of clients have, and sorry, Montana, I'm going to beat you up a little bit, but a lot of people, when they think fly fishing, they think Montana, 30, 40, 50 fish days on dries. Yes, I know Montana's not like that all the time. I've got plenty of buddies who guide up there. But, you know, it's that expectation in their head. And when they come to the Truckee River, where we have maybe a tenth of the population of fish that Montana has in a lot of their rivers, if you have a client where you don't convey that, they're going to be frustrated during the day because they're not getting this Montana experience.
Mm-hmm.
Quote unquote.
So what you would say,
Montana guides.
Yeah, so what you would say to younger guides is like one of the biggest parts of the whole trip is manage those expectations and make sure that you're having that communication between your clients before that trip, so you know what they want, what they're expecting, that type of thing.
Yep, absolutely.
Sorry, our audio's a little delayed there, but go ahead with what you were going to say. Sorry about that.
No, I think for young guides, and I know a lot of them, like, they just want to get the client's name, get their, you know, information, and be like, meet here at 7 a.m., great. And then they meet them at 7 a.m. and go to the river, and, you know, the guides are they're used to their river because that's why we got it. We know it. And the person could have another expectation of, well, why aren't I catching this many fish? Or why aren't we throwing dries? Like, I want to do that. And without talking to them prior, it can make it a really hard day for clients and guides. And it's not that they have a bad guide, and it's not that the clients are horrendous. It's kind of like a relationship. There's no communication, and if you don't express what you're thinking, because we all do it, we all have these thoughts and dreams of what a day is going to be like, and when it doesn't happen, we get hurt. So when people have an understanding of what is to be expected of the day, that's when most guides are going to succeed and going to be able to fulfill what clients want out of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's incredible advice, definitely. I'd like to move on and ask you a little bit. When I was out there with you, I got a really cool breakdown of the Pyramid Lake fishery and kind of the history behind it. I was wondering if you could kind of inform us a little bit more about that and just kind of like where it was in the past, how it's changed over the years as you've been a guide actually there on the water. It'd be awesome.
So the history of the Lahontan cutthroats, an amazing genetic story, even before we really were into genetics as a society. The original strain of Lahontan was lost due to overfishing a dam, which blocked spawning area for the fish, and they went extinct right around the early 1940s. Completely lost, and the lake was barren for probably about 10 or 15 years of trout, and they started putting other species in for a while. Nevada Department of Wildlife was putting triploids in of a cut bow that could be able to suit the lake. Pyramid is an alkaline lake. It's 1/6 the salinity of the ocean. Not a lot of species can tolerate that salt. In the late 60s, early 70s, and I'm not sure the exact time, they found a strain that was close to the original strain, which is this strain was called the Summits. the summit straight out of Summit Lake in California. And they thrived in the lake. They were doing really, really well, but they weren't really growing to the size that the original Lahans were. Late 70s, I believe it was a biologist for Endow, was exploring northeastern Nevada and came across this little creek, and he was a fly fisherman, and he was fishing, and he's like, let's see if there's any fish in here, expecting to find rainbows and brook trout, and catches a cutthroat and was like, you're not supposed to be here, what are you doing? And he caught another cutthroat. And so he went back to Nevada Department of Wildlife and was like, we have a series of cutthroat that I have no idea where they're coming from, they shouldn't be here, we need to start working on this and kind of save this, because it might be its own species of cutthroat trout that nobody knows of or anything like that. So the feds got involved, and in the late 80s, early 90s, sorry, Molly.
You're good.
Molly.
You're good. Don't
Quit
worry.
it. I'm gonna kick a dog's butt. Yeah, that's what I thought. Good girl.
I got her to calm down.
Okay. Oh. Dude, Molly just protecting the house. I've got him kenneled right now, and she sees movement out the front door. It's game on. All right, so where were we? Late 80s, early 90s, kind of the infancy of genetic testing, and they clip the fins of these cutthroat, and they take an original skin mount of the original Lahan cutthroat trout and compare them genetically. And it comes back that these fish are 93% genetically similar to the original Lahan cutthroat, which the Summits was the closest they could find at that time, and that was like 80% or 78, something like that. So 93%, you're never gonna get any closer genetically to the original fish. It took a while for the tribe to catch on, but in 2004, they introduced the first pilots into Pyramid Lake. 2008 or 9, the first 24-pound pilot was caught. I happened to be lucky enough to know the guy who caught the first one over 20 pounds, and he was 80, I think he was 83 at the time, years old, and said, you know what, I'm not gonna catch another one this size, I'm gonna keep it, do a skin mount, because by that time replicas were still just getting kicked off. But what they did is they microchipped a lot of the summits in their nose, so they're able to take that chip out, and it turned out that fish was only 5 years old and had already hit 24 pounds.
Wow.
So it kind of, now we're looking at the growth rate of these fish, which is unbelievable. The biologists on the lake have kind of gotten freaked out. So when it was only summits in the lake, they were planting a little bit over 1 million fish a year into the lake. With the pilots becoming that big, the biologists don't want to destroy the food chain and the tui chub, which is the primary source of these fish's diet. So they started reducing stockings, thinking that it would help these big fish get big. Well, inevitably being a guide and fishing that lake for over the last 20 years, yes, do we have monstrous fish? Absolutely. Are we seeing a lot more of those fish over the 10-pound range, over the 15-pound range? Absolutely. To where like the summits were only, that 10-pound fish, that was your goal was, I want to get a trout over 10 pounds. With these pilots now, you're looking 15 pounds plus is a lot of people's goals. For me, you hit a trout over 10 pounds, man, that is a trophy day in, day out, period. And so they've reduced the stockings by half now. So they're only getting in between 400,000 and 500,000 fish in a year instead of the over 1 million. So our numbers as far as the fishing have gone way down. And it's become tougher to fish it just because of the lack of fish. Yeah, you can have some banger days out there, but you're not going to really see the 30, 40, 50, 60 fish days where, you have thousands of summits pushing through in the spring right in front of you anymore. Now you'll still see fish push through, but it's just not the numbers. And it's becoming more of a trophy lake, and those people in search of that trophy fish, which it's too much. I think it's too much of a niche for everybody, except for a little group and the tribe. I think it's definitely hurting the tribe financially, and for us it's hurting us a little bit because a lot of people want to come out there and catch 20, 30 fish a day, and in the prime season, and for an individual, if we're getting upwards of 10 to 20 fish a day, man, that's a stellar day. So
gotcha. So
that's kind of the history and my thoughts on it.
Gotcha. I feel like a lot of this conversation is a little bit about kind of the conservation side of things within the area, and I'd love to hear, I feel like that's more the Pyramid Lake side of things. What's conservation look like on the Truckee, the lower Truckee? Like, how has the legislation in the area changed over the years? And do you think it's for the better, for the worse? Have you seen things that need to happen? I'd love to hear more about that.
It's been on the right track. We've had the Nature Conservancy come in. Their first project was the McCarran Ranch project back in 2004. And they redid a lot of the Truckee River east of town and spent a lot, like millions upon millions of dollars. And it revitalized the river down there to where I think the year before the Conservancy project went into place, Nevada Department of Wildlife did a shocking down there, and they estimated the trout population to be about 600 fish per mile. And then they went in the year after the project was completed, and they estimated the fish population at 1,500 fish per mile. So the Conservancy, we've had 4 major projects down there with stream restoration, everything like that. It's done wonders for the ecosystem down there. It's done wonders for our trout habitat down there. Is there some other projects I would like to see done in a couple of areas between like Reno and the Conservancy area? Absolutely. But that's just, hopefully it's a matter of time and we can get that done. They've also, the federal government's put in $40 million fish bypass system to get the cutthroat to spawn in the Truckee River again. And I don't know what the feds are doing. I'm sorry. I'm still speechless over this. So they put the fish bypass system in for the cutthroat to spawn. The next year, they had somebody only working the gates 3 days a week and had to count the cutthroat that were going through the fish bypass system. This last year, they came out and said, we're not going to open the gates up because we don't want the cutthroat interbreeding with the rainbow trout, which the Truckee River, we have our own little special breed of cutbow, even though there's not enough cutthroat in them to declare them a true cutbow. So Department of Wildlife still declares them a rainbow, even though like they'll have the slash marks on them. But the federal government said they don't want the cutthroat interbreeding with a rainbow, so now they've closed that gate off, and who knows what's going to happen now. It's hopefully the federal government doesn't get what they want, because they would love to, and they're propagate. I'm going to use this word, and this is my word, propaganda machine to have a lot of people think that these 20-pound cutthroats are going to be in the river system year-round, and you can fish the Truckee River for them. So we need to get rid of the rainbows and the browns and let these cutthroat have it. It's not the way the cutthroat from Pyramid Lake are designed. They're kind of like steelhead. They run the river to spawn, they turn around, and they're going to go right back down to the river. That's why a lot of the stockings in the river haven't really been successful with the cutthroat staying in there, because as soon as we get a first thunderstorm like we're getting this week, they get flushed straight down through and end up either in ag fields or at Pyramid Lake. So hopefully conservation wise, and Nevada Department of Wildlife's really on top of stuff, and their group of biologists are absolutely amazing. I love working with those guys, and everything seems to be on track. Conservation wise, everything's going pretty good, and I hopefully see nothing but better things coming in the future, and at least conservation wise leave a little bit of that legacy for, you know, my kids and grandkids to come for the Reno Tahoe area.
Absolutely. That's the most important thing, is leaving it for the next generation. I mean, that's so valuable. Next question, and I've been waiting to ask this the whole time, is I want to hear about the trip with Stone Cold Steve Austin and how that came about and how that went down. I would love to hear more about that. That was a recent thing, right?
It was. He's got a new TV show, and depending when this podcast airs, it might be over, but he is doing a Stone Cold Takes on America on A&E, and basically he's just going around the country, going around Nevada, and doing a lot of stuff he wasn't able to do while he was wrestling for his main career. So I was fortunate enough, I got a call from one of the producers back in November, and we started talking about it, and I had brought up to her, I was like, please don't, because I had received a phone call from a producer the year prior, and he was trying to get a show together or something the year prior. I called her back. I think she called me at like 9 o'clock at night, and I was asleep. The next morning I called her back, and she was like, oh, we already gone another way. We're like, click, done. It's like, okay, I guess that's how Hollywood works. So when this new producer called me, I was like, just please keep me in the loop. Like, if you guys decide to go another way, just, you know, be kind. And she was like, we talked for a little bit, and she's like, I love everything I'm hearing. Told him, you know, the girlfriend story, how I'm still guiding and the girlfriend's not around. And she asked me to do a Zoom meeting so she can record it. And I was like, well, I got to clear things with my wife because right now I'm in Mexico on vacation with my wife. If you don't mind that. And she absolutely loves. She's like, oh my God, you have to do it with the ocean in the background. Like everybody else is going to love it. So went through that whole process. I guess they had contacted 5 or 6 other guides. That guide Pyramid, and I guess they liked me the most. I don't want to brag. I'm trying to be humble. Young guides, be humble. And so they decided to go with me. Spent months talking to them, trying to prep everything. Got canceled on once because of calendar issues with somebody, and then got a call, so I figured TV show was out, I'm done. Got a call the next week going, hey, we can slide you back in if you can do anything between this day and this day. And I was like, you are so lucky. I've got that day in the middle wide open, let's do it. They're like, sweet. Get everything set up. Numerous phone calls, Zoom meetings, showing them beaches, because directors have this idea in their head, again, back to the communication of what they want, how they're going to do it, and I'm sitting there like, I ain't going to work. And one of their things was to have somebody in a float tube in front of Stone Cold and being able to film from a float tube, and I was like telling them, look we can do it if there's no wind, but that wind picks up, we're done. And they're like, yeah, like just bring it, we'll get it done. They didn't really understand the wind out at Pyramid. Cut to the morning of the film day, show up out at Pyramid, and it's 40 plus mile an hour winds from our back. There's when you look at the segment, there's a great opening scene of just dust and sand, everything going. And I looked at him, I go, and this is what I was telling you about when you don't put camera people in a tube, because see that other side, you'd have to go send a helicopter for them. So whether, being a guide, you try and assume and make the best decision possible, and I decided to fish an area, and those fish freaking proved me wrong, because we had same weather a couple of days before, got fish, and I was like, great, they're going to be here with this weather pattern, this type of stuff, and the entire morning we did not hook a single fish. And we're trying to make light of it. We're trying to make jokes, have fun with the guys, teach. If we're not catching fish, let's work on their casting ability and stuff like this, and then we're going to make a change. And that way they're prepared and everything's ready to go for the afternoon as far as their fishing ability goes. I think all 4 of the guests, including Stone Cold, had never fly fished a day before in their life. So it was a lot of instruction, getting everything going, which the switch rod coming out and using that on still water is an absolute game changer and makes a guide's life, as far as the casting goes, 100 times easier. So we did that. We decided to move, and it was the right call. We moved to another beach, and we started getting fish and started getting footage of some really good fish. And Stone Cold, I don't think I've heard a sailor cuss as much as Stone Cold did. And I was looking around going, this is going on national TV? Like, am I allowed to cuss? Because if if he's allowed to, am I? Because it's gonna go down. But it ended up turning out. One of his buddies landed like 4 fish. Another one missed 3 or 4. Stone Cold, I think, missed one, and then you'll hear it in the video on the famous set thing, which every guide understands, because those are 3 common words that just come out even when you're fishing with your buddies and rolling down a river or whatever, and you see that indicator go down, it's automatic, even though your buddy in the front of the bow is a guide and knows exactly what to do. That set comes out. Just form a habit. But yelled that, he set the hook, and we ended up getting a 12-pound hen pilot cutthroat to finish out the day, which was just super awesome and nice icing on the cake, and a perfect example of, even somebody their first time out can catch a trophy trout of a lifetime. And the cast, the crew was absolutely awesome to work for and work with, and it was nothing but fun and games, joking around and talking smack. And that's, for me, that makes a guide day that much better, is when the clients and people are relaxed, to where you're talking smack back and forth. You're giving the client smack for, missing a set or doing a shitty cast. Well, excuse my French, sorry.
You're good.
Stone Cold on me, and me coming out. It's, making a bad cast, and you give them a little bit of grief, and then they turn around, and, if they break a fish off or whatever, then they're giving you smack about tying poopy knots, because it's always the guide's fault. Number 1 rule of guiding. And that's, that makes the days, everybody's going to remember a few big fish they caught, but even if it's a tough day, they're going to remember having fun and talking smack and enjoying the day. Even though it was tough fishing, they're still enjoying the day. And that's what, for you young guys, that's what is going to bring clients back to you year after year, and you're going to develop those relationships and friendships. And you look forward to, all right, I got this guy, who booked me, and we had a great time last year talking smack. He did it again, and you look forward to those trips now.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Mike. Well, I have to run here in a second. I really appreciate it. It was awesome. I think we talked about a lot of cool stuff. A lot of good footage for us to kind of sort through and just mess around with. And I feel like we'll have you back, because honestly, those fisheries better than anybody I've ever met, and it's great talking to you and learning about those things. So, last thing I wanted to touch on is anything coming up for Bucking Trout Outfitters that you would like people to know about, that we can kind of clip up for you, that you've got coming up, or anything that you'd like to promote?
Right now, the thing I'm going to try and work on promoting hard, float trips on the Nevada side of the Truckee, like what we were just talking about. It's going to be absolutely amazing. With the high water this year, we're going to be able to float it and do it all summer long into the fall. If you ever want to improve your skills, come to the Truckee River. It will make you a better fisherman, period. If you want to get better at streamer fishing, Truckee River's to do it. I've got my own little ways. There's a couple of other guys that have their own little ways, but it's all pretty similar. And it'll make, no matter what area you want to work on or just try and pop big fish, the Truckee River is the place to do it and make you a better fisherman. And float trips are a great way to see a lot of different water, fish a lot of different water in roughly a short amount of time, and see a lot of the scenery, and float past wild horses coming down for a drink of water or grazing up on a hill. Like, you can't, it's definitely the rose of the desert, and I can't say enough about it. Like, it's my love, but that's why I guide it. So I love being out there. I love guiding. I love teaching people and watching the evolution throughout the day of an individual, and how they progress, whether they're the first timer or a seasoned vet that needs to work on a double haul, or, casting streamers and working on a raw twitch or stripping or whatever. Like, that evolution through the day is the reason I've grown to love that, and I love watching it throughout the day.
Awesome. Well, Mike, it was great having you on. I got to run, but looking forward to continuing working with you, and we'll get some other stuff set up, hopefully.